And the results are all online. You can Google it, Santa Fe living wage, and you find out that it did exactly what we say it's going to do. Put more money in workers' pockets, the money circulates through the economy, everybody gets wealthy. That's the first one. And this bill is pretty simple. It says if you work for a company that does business with Gov Guam or receives job subsidies from Gov Guam, which are what qualifying certificates are, job subsidies. We don't just give away tax breaks to companies for the heck of it. We give away tax breaks to companies so that they provide good jobs for our families, which they haven't been doing very well. It says if you work for one of these companies that receives job subsidies, you have to pay your employees a living wage. And it scales up over a couple of years, and then eventually it ties in to the level for food stamp eligibility of a family of 4, which right now is about $13.40 an hour. That would generate tens of millions of dollars a year in our economy. Secondly, I introduced a bill that would raise public servants' pay. I don't really like to call it a pay raise because it's not a pay raise. It's a pay adjustment, and it would adjust across the board every public servant's wage by $10,880. Where did I come up with that number? Well, first off, as some people might notice, it's doubled the last pay raise, $54.40. And I thought, for historical purposes, we're going to round it up to $10,880. Is it that far off? No. What I did is I took grade A, step 1 of the Unified Pay Scale, which was set in 1989, and I punched it into an inflation calculator for today. That same job today was short about $10,390 a year. So I rounded up an extra $500 for the lowest pay grade. If you look at starting pay for a teacher, it's about $20,000 less than it was in 1990, et cetera, et cetera. So this is a very basic pay adjustment, incredibly basic. Now, do we need to do more? Of course. Then it'll be just like the $54.40, if you guys can remember that far back, where we had an across-the-board pay raise, and then the Hay methodology came in and reslotted everybody and made it correct for everybody across the country. And we've already contracted the Hay people. This is what we need to do first, raise up the standard and move forward. I mean, do you know what starting pay for a police officer is? Even with the pay raise that the legislature gave them, this year the second 10% kicks in, starting pay for a police officer is about $9 an hour. Now think about it. $9 an hour. Do you want to give somebody a gun and the responsibility to keep your family safe that's only making $9 an hour, $4 an hour below the poverty line? That's just stupid. You wonder why in third world countries, who are you more afraid of, the cops or the bandits? Well, usually, if like I went to school in San Diego, when we went to Mexico, we were more afraid of the police. Because they got crappy pay too, but they had a gun. And they were legal to carry it. And that scares me. Things like that lead people to places they don't want to be. When you can't take care of your family, you do whatever you have to take care of your family. And when your job is to carry a gun, that's not a good idea. We need to raise everybody's salary. So, do we have a lot of other issues on our plate? Yes. Do I have a lot of other things that I'm trying to do and fix up the government of Guam so we have a management structure in place that actually works and use real management techniques? Yes. Are we trying to provide health care for everybody? Yes. Are we trying to do all sorts of things to fix up our system? Yes. I could stand up here and talk for hours about the 43 bills that I've introduced. I don't think it's quite 43. But you can read about them all on my website, www.mattrector.com. You can check out my Facebook. You can see me on that. I've got some Facebook friends in this room. And you can call my office, 734-MATT, anytime you want to talk and if you got a question. But for now, thank you so much for having me. And I believe somebody wants to ask me questions. Anybody? Am I done? Applause, yay. See, I didn't give you guys the big rah-rah speech with all the applause breaks in it. Anybody have any questions? Going once, twice?
I do. Yeah, I got one. Please.
Fire away, sir.
Would you be in favor of having the union pay taxes on its dues and on its revenue?
The union's a nonprofit organization, and we don't want any nonprofit organizations to pay taxes.
That's a no.
Correct. Nonprofit organizations don't pay taxes.
I think that when you're telling him he should pay taxes when he's probably not making money, you don't really have good standing when you don't pay taxes.
The union isn't a for-profit organization, like a church isn't a for-profit organization, like the Rotary Club isn't a for-profit organization. There's a difference between a for-profit business and a non-profit organization. Now,
that's an election that you make.
An election that who makes?
You can, if you guys want to pay taxes, you can pay taxes.
I suppose we could if we wanted to. That's right.
Okay, that's all I want to hear then. Don't blame him if he doesn't pay taxes when you've made the choice not to pay taxes.
Okay. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
What's the reception been towards your economics, if you want to put it that way, in the legislature? What have your cohorts thought about some of the things you propose? Are you getting support, or in general, are they against it?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's a bit tricky with my brothers and sisters in the legislature. You know, generally, I'm not a very good politician. I probably never will be. To be a good politician, you want to do as little as possible, right? Because then nobody can get mad at you. And you want to introduce bills that make no changes so no one can get mad at you and you be on the front page of the PD and people screaming at you. So it makes them very nervous to do systematic changes. I think lots of my colleagues would like to come along on some of the ideas. Some of them vote along with me on some of it. But it's going to take a popular uprising to convince a lot of my colleagues that it's a good thing to do and they can vote for higher wages and better jobs and better lives and get reelected. So, yes, sir.
Actually, Senator, I think to be a good politician, you would have to eliminate any possibility of real or imagined ethics perceptions, and whether or not your interests were for your interest of your other relationships or interest, in your case representing GFT. Don't you really think that to be a good senator you should step down from GFT so that people would look at your information seriously and say you have no other interests involved other than truly helping all the people of Guam and not just the union people you represent?
That's a great question. Sort of. I'll agree with you. See, the thing is everybody knows I'm president of GFT. Is there anybody in this room that didn't know I was president of GFT? Was there anybody that didn't know I was president of GFT when I ran? If you didn't know that I was going to remain president of GFT when I ran, then you probably didn't vote for me, because it was on my website, it was on every bit of information I put out in the campaign. So the people that elected me, the 14,660 voters that said, I think Matt Rector is going to do a good job for my family in the legislature, those folks knew I was going to be president. See, I'm transparent when it comes to it. All of my finances are on the table. All of my family's finances are on the table. Everybody knows exactly where every one of my connections is. Can you say the same thing for everybody else in the legislature? Can you say the same thing for anybody else in the legislature? Think about it. I just had a bill that would have given paid sick leave for everybody on Guam. How many people in the legislature have employees that would have been affected by it? How many people would have lost personal profits if that bill passed? Did you see any disclosures and anybody recuse themselves from the vote?